Try to get this up here on the screen so I can kind of see comments. All right, let's continue where we left off yesterday, I guess, in terms of dad advice. And it's fun to have everybody yesterday. Actually, it was really, really meaningful for me, and I thought I would do it again. And you know, we can learn some more about each other in the process. So I am a dad. I'm a licensed and certified dad, but that is all I am. So please take anything I say with a grain of salt, and please take anything anybody tells you, any type of advice anyone gives you, with a grain of salt. That is one of those things that makes you so special, is your ability to make your own decision. So, feel free to go ahead and comment if you have anything that you'd like me to speak to. I'm happy to speak to it and give a dad perspective. I'm going to go, in the meantime, over to, I guess, some of the comments from yesterday that I didn't get to, that I skipped over, that I missed, and I apologize for that. So let's just get into it and see where it goes. So let's see what we got here. First of all, I hope everybody's having an amazing day, or had an amazing day, depending where you are. And it was one that was fulfilling for you, because that's what the goal is, that every day we can have some fulfillment in our life, right? And feel good about that. So, yesterday, one of the first questions someone asked me is, do I like hot moms? And, I actually wanted to, at the time I was like, yeah, sure. But the truth of the matter is, I like kind moms. I like kind people. I like good people that do good things and try to do their best. That's what I really like. Do I find hot moms sexy? Yes. But that's different than, what I like, if that makes sense. And I think that's an important perspective, right? Is, we talked about relationships yesterday, and just really keeping in mind that, make sure you get the whole picture in whoever you choose in life, right? Someone that you can make happy and can make you happy as well. And ultimately, they have to make you happy, because this is your life and you have to be happy in your life. You only have this one opportunity to pass through this world. That's all you get. That's all we get. So, the first thing that just comes to mind is make sure you're happy. I didn't mean to put the other person first, but, it's just, okay. Well, I got a question, so I'll go deal with that and see where it goes. Have you dealt with a narcissist co-parent? Well, here's the thing. I don't believe that a person can decide if someone else that they were in a relationship with is really a narcissist. And I think this is important from a divorce perspective. And that's just because, when someone hurts us, a lot of the times we're like, oh, they're a narcissist. But the reality is that, there's a definition of what a narcissist is. There's a big DSMV or something like that, I think it's called. So I think it's important, two things, that I like to think about that. I think anyone who's got divorced has probably at some point in the process said, the person I was married to is a narcissist. And what that really means is that they didn't agree with what they wanted. Right? So if someone, I think we can see that a lot, right? Someone, when we're in a relationship, they've made certain determinations, done certain things that have hurt us, perhaps, and we're like, oh, that person's a narcissist. Well, really, that person's doing what's best for them, just like I do what's best for me. They do what's best for them, and in a relationship, that's all about doing what's best for each other, right? There's some sacrifice every once in a while, and there's also, a lot of peace. But, so it's really hard, I think, to look at a co-parent and say they're a narcissist or they're not a narcissist. I think that we're biased. A friend of yours, right, that really, that doesn't really have the bias, if they say they're a narcissist, yeah, maybe they are, but, so that would be the perspective there that I take, is just to be really careful of your own bias when judging someone to be a narcissist. So yeah, because they can appear like a narcissist, but most people in this world, are in the bell curve of good people, right? There are a couple of outliers, but on either side, exceptional people on one side and really, what we'd call bad. I mean, they're not bad people; they have bad actions, right? Because there's no person that's bad, right? That's definitely something to keep in mind, is that we're all people, we're all walking through the path of life, and we all have our struggles, and recognizing that they're bad actions, but at the end of the day, they're just a person that perhaps, right, society, I've always felt bad for people that, society's kind of forfeited, right? So certain people end up in certain circumstances in life because society is letting them down. And that's all of our faults. And I think that's always important to keep in mind too, is that, we're all together in this world. We're all interconnected in this world. And the action that I have is connected to the action that the next person does. So, yeah. So I guess that's where I'd go with the question about narcissism. Okay, let's see what else we got. Thoughts on the stimulus from a dad perspective? I don't know. Is there a question? I'm happy to, I don't know where to go with that. I mean, I think it was necessary, obviously. And I think that it's kind of cool if let's not talk about specific stimulus or whatever. I don't really know much about it. So, but I will say this, that I think it's cool that we're at a place in history where we can keep problems from getting a lot worse quickly. Now, I think at some point we're probably going to have to pay the piper here. But it is pretty cool to me that 10 years ago and now, that there are systems in place. I always like to look at the progress we make as society, because otherwise it gets a little bit hopeless sometimes, right? When you look outside and you see the bad things going on. So to look on the kind of the positives is that we have a society where we were able to, make some positive change pretty quickly. Now, I do think that it's really sad to me that we weren't prepared for a pandemic here in the U.S. I don't think there's any excuse for that. And that's my personal perspective on that, that we knew this was coming. It's something we've been talking about for a while. Things have been here before. It's not like we haven't had things that could have been pandemics before. And we have technology. I mean, for God's sake, right? We have real technology. We can create apps that can enable a lot of the stuff. And it's actually a little bit odd to me. One of the, I've been thinking about different businesses that I might want to, get into next. And I'm kind of like, there needs to be a way to create a rapid development around problems like this, because they're not, I'm kind of a technology guy. These are big problems, but in a way they're not. And I think there's some small solutions that could be pretty impactful. So it's something I'm curious about right now is how do we live in the world that we live in around some of the things, some of the solutions, even from a data perspective, enabling, really real data and look, there's stuff out there, but it's not aggregated. It's hard to find. Yeah. Anyway, let's keep going. Thank you. No Ferry Us account for safe and social. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the good words. So thank you. Should I be the one to reach out to my father first? He's crappy, but I realize he's not immortal. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, to me, it has to be fulfilling to you. Any relationship that you're involved in. And again, I'm going to assume that a person's, because anytime I say something, it has to be broader than, it can't just be, every absolute is false, right? So the irony there. So, absolutely. Always be the first to reach out. What do you have to lose? right? Pride. What's that gonna help you with in life? Your pride, right? Give up your pride, and be the first person to reach out. And especially if you have some, and I don't know if you mean immortal, like he's in danger of dying, or like Superman, but but look, if there's an issue in a relationship, I feel it's always worth being the first to reach out and trying to resolve the issue, trying to talk through the issue, because it just doesn't hurt anything, and absolutely does help. So absolutely, be the first. Be brave. Be brave in life, right? Life is to be lived by the brave. There's a lot of scary things in this world. And being able to live in that brave space can be very fulfilling, and really can get you into a space of feeling alive. So always, choose bravery when you can. Absolutely. Okay. I don't have the best nor a good relationship with my father, and I honestly don't think I care about him as much as I wish I did. Do you have any advice? I'm 16. So, sure, we can talk about that a little. And also, I'll throw out there, if you're asking questions, the more detail you can give me, I'll be happy to speak to, things in more detail, right? Because at the end of the day, the subtleties change one question from the next, right? So, so look, so it sounds like Fill Their Flame 69 is, it sounds like you're feeling a little guilty about that. That you say, I don't think I care about him as much as I wish I did. So first of all, get rid of the guilt. You don't have to feel guilty. It's not a guilt, right? That's not a thing that is going to help you in this situation to feel guilty about. If you're feeling it, that's what you're feeling. So acknowledge it. Just acknowledge the feeling. That's number one. I think you also have to ask, like, is this just, are you feeling this? Do you feel that it's coming from your father? Speaking a little bit to your, it sounds like I'm, hoping you have a good relationship with your mom. So even talking it out with her, right? And, kind of sharing your feelings with your mom of, hey, I'm feeling this, I think that could be really a productive conversation. So I'd start, actually, that's probably what I would do. I'd start just talking to your mom and just say, hey, Ma, I need to have an honest conversation with you. This is what I'm feeling. And, see what advice she has, because she's going to know him. She's going to have all that information that can really help you help yourself. So that's probably where I would go. I mean, what specific advice would I say besides talk to your mom? I mean, obviously, let's start with that. How do you deal with a self-centered parent? So I would say that's similar to the question we talked about earlier about the narcissist, right? We're all self-centered, aren't we? I think we are. We're all self-centered. In fact, I could even challenge this, that saying that your parent's self-centered is somewhat of a self-centered perspective. And being self-centered is somewhat healthy, and it's also somewhat unhealthy. Well, I'm sorry that you have a self-centered parent and that you feels that way, that the relationship feels that it's all about them and not about you, because I know that can hurt. When you want attention, when you want to be recognized, acknowledged. So I'm sorry. Maybe you can give me some more information about how what that really means, and then maybe we can talk about maybe a specific episode and how to handle that specific episode as opposed to the more broad term. All right, cool. And we got some good stuff going on in the comments. So yeah, absolutely. Keep it going with other, other comments as well. Beautiful. How do you get your stepchildren who are in their early 20s to keep a job and move out? That could be a stressor. Kids can be a stressor in a second relationship. That's for sure. That's for sure. I haven't had that experience yet, so it's hard for me to give real advice. Even with my own kids are in their, between 15 and 20. So, so I can't give any advice on that. I'll say I don't know. And also encourage, we always talk in the last couple of days, about saying I don't know when I don't know. And I think it's a good habit to not know and acknowledge that you don't know and just live in that truth. So I'm going to go, I don't know. But I will acknowledge the stress that creates on your relationship. And, because kids add a dimension to a relationship, right? So you're in a relationship with whoever you're in a relationship with, and then the kids are there in your relationship with them, for good or for bad. So that's a tough one. Thoughts on COVID-19 messing with the rioters? I'll just throw something out there. They talk, and again, I really try not to watch the news. I think it's fundamentally damaging to me. I'll just put it out there. I mean, I live in the South, and I don't think there's anything going on at the riots that aren't happening on the beaches around me, and and I think it's, what. So that's my general take. Is that I know I've been hearing about people saying, hey, it's going to be spread because of the riots. Well, it's spreading because people are going to bars and stuff like that. And like I was talking about earlier, it's sad to me that we don't have the data to really be able to understand what's really going on here and what the real risk is. There is once upon a time I was, I studied economics. And at the end of the day, economists put like a value on a life, right? So, and there's a mental health thing going on here too. So and that's also part of it. I don't understand why societally we're not looking at this from the whole person perspective, which is, there's economic damage from staying inside. There's health damage from going outside. There's health damage from staying inside. So, and it's unfortunate that we don't have the leadership to really help us through this entire process. It's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate, really sad to me. But from a specifically to the rioters, that's, exactly the same thing as what's, people are voluntarily, doing. And that's, to me, that's like, at least with the rioting, the peaceful rioting, which, is always in favor of peaceful rioting. I mean, I'd love to see, personally, like have like socially distanced rioting, right? And that's how I do it. If I was going to arrange things, I'd be like, look, guys, we're going to all show up and we're all going to make sure we're being smart about this. That's how I try to arrange things. But anyway, what would you do if someone had abducted your daughter and held her hostage for money? How would you get her back? This is my 007 question of the day. So my taken question of the day. Right. So I like this. It could be like a new movie idea. And I'd like to say that I haven't actually thought about that question, but I actually have. That's like how anxious of a guy I am. And anxiety sucks. So you got to work through the anxieties. But I've actually gone through these questions, right, in my head. But and I decided I'd always call the FBI. No matter what they said, I'm going to call the FBI because, I think that's the game theory there. Okay, how to have patience and allow myself to live in present. There's two different things to me: being patient and being present. So patience, so let's just talk about living in the present moment. Because when we're in our head, we're either in the past or in the future, right? There's no present in our head, right? The only present is when you stop kind of thinking and you're just aware of your present environment. So that's being present, right? Give it a shot, right? If you just take a look at something that's in your surroundings. I got a drink here. So I can be present. I can be aware of that drink just for a quick moment. And there's no past. There's no future. There's just the present. And that's nice because, right, when we're in our head, that's where all the anxieties, all the fears, all the, the negative thoughts kind of come to play. So we can stop all that, which is kind of cool. We have that power, and it takes work because there's also, right, there's thoughts, and then emotions are connected to thoughts, and feelings are connected to thoughts. But we have a power to actually break out of wherever we are at any moment and come back to present. Because when we're being present, all those issues that we have actually don't exist. They'll exist in the future, right? And maybe they, came from our history, but they don't actually exist in the present. So, so that's what I would say about, it's a choice. We make a choice to stop the thinking and to come back to the present moment. So that's how that works out. How to have more patience. Patience is a hard one. It does strike me that some people have naturally more patience. It's a lot of the time that comes from their parents, right? Were their parents patient people, or were they, less patient people? And a lot of what we are just comes from our parents. I mean, we look back, right? We both, and it's probably not just our parents. It goes back generations, right? It's how much of our personality, right? If you imagine going back, 3 or 4 generations and meeting, your great grandparents, for example, right? And you meet them personalities, you might be like, oh, you know what? I noticed they do that weird tick thing that, that my dad does. And they, they have that anger in them. And it just gets passed on from parent to child until we decide, we become aware of it and we change it, and then we can stop it. And actually, that's just a really important thing to always keep in mind, is that, how many of our traits aren't really ours, but are things that have been developed and passed on to us, perhaps against our will. And these are things that we can rid ourselves of. All right. Who's this guy, and what does his authority to answer questions stem from? I'm just a random dude on the internet. I have no authority. So I'm just speaking from experience, kind of stuff I've learned along the way. That's all I got. Just experience. And I look, and I think about a lot of these things. I'm a thinker. That's my whole life. I've been thinking, for better, for worse. So, but again, there's no guarantees with anything I say. And you can absolutely take it or leave it, because it's just my understanding of the world. This is a very cool thing you're doing. Thank you. Thank you for the appreciation. How do I tell my girlfriend she sucks at blowjobs without hurting her feelings? So, at first I was like, should I even go into that? But, you have to be honest. So let's make it a broader question of, how do you tell someone something without hurting their feelings, right? That's the question. The content doesn't really matter here, right? It's not like that's anything particular that's unique in a relationship that a girlfriend or a boyfriend could be bad at. So look, I think, anytime we're in a relationship, if we want to, if things come from a place of caring and not a place of demanding, they can be received. So I think that's the key there, is just really to, you should ask for what you want in a relationship, and explain, why it's important if it's not something that's clear, and also give advice on what you're looking for. So, just be very, I think that's a pretty thing, just a pretty easy thing, just kind of, I mean, it's maybe an uncomfortable conversation, and it's great that you want to be sensitive, but just say, hey, you know what, in a case like, you just say, this is what I would like. Try this or try that and see what happens. You don't even have to say she sucks. All right, obviously, you don't have to say she sucks at blowjobs. Just say, hey, why don't you try this or why don't you try that? I'd like it if you did this, right? So that's going to be my advice. So go back to the beginning that I've thought it through a little bit. Just, is that, the more effective way to ask what we want for what we want is not to say that someone's doing something poorly, but rather to focus on what we would like, and have a clear communication of, hey, could you try this or could you try that, right? If you'd like coffee in the morning because that makes you feel appreciated, say, hey, would you mind making coffee for me in the morning? And, there's no aspect of putting someone down there. It's, this is what I'd like, and then they get a chance to say yes or no. They get to use their voice. All right. Who cooked your breakfast? I cook my breakfast. I cook my lunch. I cook my dinner. Learn to cook. Dad advice on cooking, if you don't know how to cook. I like the meal service kind of things. Give that a shot if you haven't tried that. It's a great way to just learn something, have all the ingredients there, and learning how to cook is pretty cool. The only dad advice I would throw out there is that, like, if you make something, like, you put it on high, it doesn't cook faster. That was the big learning curve for me, was that, it's not about just blasting it on high. So I'll share that 2 cents for those non-cooks out there. Because I learned to cook when I was 35, and my kids put up with it for about 5 years, another 5 years, until I figured that secret out. So, and I enjoy it. What would you do if your daughter's sports coach at high school was texting her? Look, different schools have different, and again, it depends what the texting is, obviously. I just pay attention. I mean, I think you have to I do believe that you got to give your kids a lot of flexibility. I think it's a challenge as a parent. The challenge for parents in the internet age are somewhat unique. And it's not just sports coaches. It's, random strangers on the internet. And the problem is that there's not always a lot of enough sophistication at a younger age for them to discern what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. It reminds me of my own my own stories from college, but but look, I think I obviously keep an eye on it, and in some schools, right, have a policy of like a no texting policy. So if that's the case, then you should report it, obviously. But there's other stuff that would get involved. It's a hard question depending on all the facts, right? Okay. So what else we got here? I already love you more than my actual dad. Oh, I hope not. I really hope not. I hope not. Find a way to love your dad. You only got one dad. Find a way to love everyone in your life, right? I mean, we're only here for a certain period of time. It was like one of the, I think Ram Dass, one of these Eastern guys, said something to the effect of, you think you're enlightened until you meet your family. And part of that is because they kind of shine a mirror on yourself. And it's hard to be in a relationship with people who might remind ourselves of our worst qualities, right? Even though they also might remind us of our best qualities, but we don't necessarily focus on that. But find a way to really come to peace with whatever issues you have with your parents, and in a way that's healthy for you, and find a way back to love. Aloha from Maui. Yeah, I'll tell you my Hawaii story real quick. So there's this thing called the Road to Hana, I think, and we were out in Hawaii, and it's this beautiful lush road, basically, and that everyone travels to the road to Hana. So I went down the road, and I got to the end, and everybody like turns around at the end of the road. But I said, let's just keep going. Let's go. Let's keep going. And because I have a rule in life, is never take the same path twice, right? So I travel a lot. That's kind of my thing. I travel. So if you're going, down one street, make sure you don't come back that same street. Go down another street. Go down a side street, because you'll have a whole different experience. So anyway, I was in Hawaii I don't remember which island. There's one or two islands we're on, and I think it was Maui. And we went down the road and we kept going, and I can only tell you that it was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Is green and lush as this road to Hana was. The other side was absolutely desolate in the most beautiful way. The most beautiful way. So if you ever get a chance to go to, I think it was Maui, and get to go on the road to Hana, make sure you keep going. And you also see a bunch of like military guys, because apparently I think there's like some type of government observatory, and like all these guys are there with like these huge guns. It's kind of interesting. All right. See what else we got here. Give me a reason not to kill or injure my enemy. Sure. And I'm going to assume you mean just, this isn't like a real, like, I want to kill someone kind of thing. There's like, more of a, well, how should I approach enemies? Let's change the question. I'm going to change the question is, how should I approach my enemies? Yeah, it's funny I don't know that I have enemies anymore. And it's not that there aren't people that dislike me, because I'm sure there are. But I think what I've learned is that they're not my enemy unless I make it my enemy. And I don't want to have enemies in my life. So I can choose to basically ignore them, right? Because it's my world, right? It's your world. So you can basically choose to ignore these people and not let them have that impact on you. That's a power that you have and that you can take. So I would encourage you to, when there are people in your life that you view as your enemies, you have nothing to do with them. That's the first thing I throw out there, is just really distance yourself, create distance, and also I'd encourage you to forgive them if you can. And if you can't, work on yourself so you can, because you're holding on to that hate. And so then you're tied down, right? So in some ironic kind of way, by holding on to all that hate, you're the one that's actually getting hurt. So why would you give them that power? Cool. Advice on girls. Let's talk just in general advice in finding someone who's a good match. Let's make it more broad. Find someone with a good heart. How they treat others is how they'll treat you. That's number one. What else? Make sure you're having fun. Make sure you're laughing. And make sure you're on the same page with your goals. You both have the same goals in life, right? Both short-term and long-term goals. That gives you the best chance to succeed in a relationship, I think. All right. Kind of weird just to do this like all by myself. It's a lot of talking. But really, thank you for joining. It's interesting as I probably just need to slow it down a little bit. I felt yesterday was a little bit more real than today. Feels a little more skippy. But it's kind of a fun exercise to try something new here. I encourage everybody to try something new as much as possible, right? Even bring newness into your life. Otherwise, life gets a little monotonous sometimes. And also, I encourage everyone to take on a challenge, like something you're a little uncomfortable with, like push it a little bit and keep pushing the envelope. And then you kind of feel sometimes that you're really living when you're free to make those hard choices. You can like live in that space. It's a cool place to live. Any advice for a new dad? Just found I'll be having a son. Congratulations. Wife is 15 weeks pregnant now. Congrats. So look, right now it's about supporting her. About supporting the new wife. I think that, she's gonna have a lot of things going through her head, and really the better emotional support that you can offer, that's something that'll really stick in the relationship for a long time. So really be there, and both in a doing things perspective as well as being there emotionally, because you got like a person growing inside you. Think about that for a second. Like there's a person inside you. That's just a crazy idea, and I think that I think so. That's number one. Just be there and support now, right? I would say that when the baby's born, try not to have any family around for a day. I think there's a tendency that everybody will show up, and I just say, hey, look, we want the first 24 hours to ourselves to start our family. That's something I've noticed that people don't do that I think is a good idea. Just because at the end of the day, you will be a family unit, right? The two of you and a kid. And so you want to start building that yourself before you bring other people into that unit. And just, get ready not to sleep for a while. But that's gonna be awesome. And just, let's see, what else would I do in advance of the baby arriving? Oh, don't buy a lot of stuff. Everyone thinks they need this and that and the next. You don't. Babies eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom. That's all they do. And you don't need a lot of stuff to do that. Is you need stuff, you can buy it. And buy it used, because you're not going to use it for long. All this baby stuff. You're using it for a month and they grow. You use it for a month and they grow. So that'd be the other advice I would give, is really, there's not a reason to buy more than almost, a pack and play. And as you want something, as you need something, go pick it up. But just don't worry about it. It's all going to be good. Okay, so what else got? Advice for after high school: keep working or move on to university. So I don't know what keep working would be. Look, I think in general, university is a privilege. If you have that opportunity to do it without wrecking your financial life, you should take it. But you got to figure out a way to go to university and kind of end up coming out of university with no debt, right? So that means, try to set yourself up in a situation where it's a local college. Start with community college, maybe, work part-time at the same time. If you can move to a state and make yourself a resident where they have free school, if that's an option for you. I definitely think the university experience gives you, a social environment, which is unique. It gives you a foundational, a time to kind of relax before you really hit the real world. Because once you graduate college, it's a whole different game. You're working, and you're going to keep doing that for 45 years, 50 years, right? So if you can have that opportunity to have the college experience, I would definitely say do it. But if the only way to do it is to take on a lot of debt, I think that's a poor choice. Because I think that it just becomes a weight on you for the rest of your life, and hard to get out from under. So that's kind of where I'd kind of break it down. All right. So we got here. How do I cope with going back to work possibly in the next couple of weeks? I love having the time and energy to do my little hobbies. Formal barber in my 30s, working at a boys club, which I also love, but having my own time is a beautiful thing. Yes, everybody needs to have their own time. Absolutely. Time to recharge, time to reconnect. Look, hopefully you can find a way to find balance in your life. And that means, right, to have work, to have play, to have relationship, to have all those things that you need in your life. And so sometimes it's just about restructuring your life to, allow for, for your own time. So, it might be that you have to work a little bit less to find a better work-life balance. So that's, yeah. Okay, so what's we got here? What would you do if you found out you had a 16-year-old? I assume you mean, a 16-year-old I don't know about. Like they knock on the door and say, "Hey, Dad, I'm home." It's an interesting question. Well, first of all, I'd be very surprised because I kind of know what I was doing 17 years ago. So it'd be pretty surprising. Look, I think I would, and here's the thing about just being a dad in general, is that there's a certain level of responsibility that you take on being a dad, and it's not the same thing as when it's not your own kid. So in this case, even though it might be my own kid, I don't think it would have the same feeling to me of, well, this is my kid. I mean, apparently it would be my kid, right? But it wouldn't have that, hey, I've made this commitment to this person. So I think I'd welcome them into my life, and because I'm always looking for more friends, but it wouldn't come with that same dad responsibility to it. I don't think. I think that would be, just a little bit different. Okay. Why aren't I wearing a ring? I'm not married. All right, so what else we got here? Me and my high school ex had a healthy relationship. Recently started talking again. We're both in college. We're one state apart, but all that love came back. What to do? I feel so much in my heart, but do you want to take on another long distance relationship? Look, you have to make that decision for yourself. That's the truth. That's the kind of thing that, you know what that's about, right? You understand what a long distance relationship is. One thing that I would throw out there is that exes are comfortable, but they're not necessarily good for you. Just to throw that out, that meaning that there's a reason you typically break up with someone. And sometimes you forget about that until you get back in a relationship and, then you're like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why this didn't work. So, that would be just something I'd put out there. Long distance relationships are hard. Relationships are hard. That's the nature of a relationship. But again, at the end of the day, if it's worth it, whatever you want to do in life, right? If it's worth putting in the work, you should put the work in, you should do it. Because it's your life and you get to choose how to maximize your pleasure in the world, right? So absolutely. If it's something you want to do, go for it. And you know what the consequences are, which is, the fact that it's long distance. So, but you have, that's one of those things where you got to go with your heart, go with your gut. We can talk about that a little bit. Right? Let's talk about the general idea of going with our gut and going with our heart in decision making. So I think what we find is that we want to be aligned in our thoughts and actions. And sometimes there's so much stuff rattling up in our head that it's hard to really know what we want. And one way to kind of look internally and figure out where your gut is really to get quiet, find a quiet space, and close your eyes and ask the question to yourself and see what imagery comes up. And this is just like a technique that I've used. Another is just to you can write it out in a journal and have a conversation with yourself. But try to really figure out, what do you really want? What do you really, really want? So you can, use that as your guiding star in life. And you got to be honest with yourself, because sometimes your gut will be like, well, let's say, maybe in this case, your gut is, let's go back to the long distance relationship. Is my gut is I should, be in a relationship. Well, you might be fooling yourself. So you have to kind of learn what guts you can trust and what guts you can't trust. Okay, let's keep going. What do I do after realizing that I've disrespected my mother through a conversation weeks ago? Do I apologize even though it's awkward? How should I do it? That's a good question. I like that question, right? Meaning, so the apology itself can be hurtful. Is it better to apologize and make her feel bad, or just let it go? Probably depends how bad it was. You can also, you don't have to, one thing I have done in the past is something like this, where I'll be like, hey, we were talking the other day, I just want you to know that I said something that I thought was hurtful, and I didn't really mean it. And if they say, well, what was it? You can just say, I don't want to get back into it. I just wanted you to know that, I said something, and, I didn't really mean it. I wasn't really thinking. It was just something I said. So that's one approach that you could take. And, that's kind of that in between of not saying anything, but saying everything. And then, and another option would be, you could do that, and you could just kind of go out of your way to tell her how much you love her. Because every parent wants to hear that, that they're loved, just like each of us, each child wants to hear they're loved. Everybody wants to hear they're loved. That's what, at the end of the day, that's all any of us really want is love from other people, and connection within the world. So, that's kind of how I'd play that. I seem like a cool dad. You'd have to ask my kids. But thank you. But yeah, look, I think it's easy to be a dad to a random stranger. It's hard to be a dad to your own kids, right? So I think a lot of people who've maybe even said, like, my dad's, and whatever, their dad could be on here too, right? Doing this kind of stuff. But relationships are hard when there's a person who might be trying to control you, or not because they want to control you, but because they want what's best for you. Okay, so what else we got here? How do you deal with social anxiety? I guess this will probably be the last question for here, because I got about 2 minutes left. So, we can continue this again. I'm happy to do it. So I'm glad that people find it interesting. I enjoy it. So, dealing with social anxiety. I think it's like any anxiety, right? So you have to, I think cognitive-based therapy is a good way to work on anxieties. So it's, really acknowledging the thoughts that are in your head, and then challenging those thoughts, challenging those false beliefs. And social anxiety means a lot of things, right? So it can mean, some people just don't even want to go out in public. Some people don't want to pick up the phone and make a phone call. Some people, so it means a lot of things to a lot of people. So I think it's really just about, working through that with a therapist. I think that's like a perfect therapist kind of issue, because there are tools that actually are effective at really helping, get through social anxiety. So I've got a minute left. I will share just my thoughts to all of you that, as your internet dad, you're beautiful and you're whole, and you can do anything you want in this world. And don't let anyone tell you any differently, because they would be wrong. And I'm not saying it because I'm biased or because I'm your dad, because it's the truth. So thank you for joining me. Like I mentioned yesterday, if I added any value to your life, if you don't mind saying thanks, because that makes me feel good. It makes me want to come back. I'd appreciate that. I guess I'll try to do this again. My schedule allows tomorrow night at 5. And keep on rocking and rolling. So until then, cheers and be well. Thank you very much.